Well, that's my cue, everybody. Welcome to Virtual Night Sky, our version for May the 4th, 2022. I suspect everybody that was tuned on early enough to hear it recognized the music that was playing there. And I hope you don't think we're going to do a Star Wars show tonight. We're not really. We're going to show stars, but not a Star Wars show. But Kim, I'm going to ask you just to sort of like unmute and show people your background, just so we can sort of like get the meaning of the Star Wars over with. Can we do that?
Hello,
There you go. Can you pin yourself just so you're like full screen? I don't know if everybody's heard this or not, but May 4th has now become May the 4th be with you. And if you move out of the way, there you go. May the 4th be with you. And so welcome to May 4th, and May the 4th be with all of us. I think that would be really super cool. We're going to kind of go back to some of our roots tonight. Most of the program tonight is really going to be about the night sky. And so at least once a quarter, we really try to dive into like what's up there, what's going on, and some of the stars that we looked at in December, January, and February are now moving off and moving into the sunset, as they do. And a whole new crop of stars, a whole new set of things to look at is starting to rise and starting to become prominent in our night sky. So for the most part, I think that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna spend our time there, and we're going to show you a lot of that. And then we have some updates for you, some about some launches that we're expecting coming up. You're gonna hear about them more and more and more again over the summer, because it's really special for my school, the School of Earth and Space Exploration. And tonight we're just going to kind of get a little starter on this, what's happening, what launch vehicles are launching, what we're waiting for, what we're expecting, and all of that. So that will happen tonight. There's a meteor shower, and Alex will tell us about that later in the program. And there's also a lunar eclipse coming up, and Alicia will explain to you what we're doing for that lunar eclipse and what to expect and what to watch for. So stars, then launches, then meteor shower, then eclipses, and that's going to fill up our night. I want to, I always forget to introduce myself. So many of you already know who I am, but I'm Rick Alling, and I'm the manager of community outreach for the School of Earth and Space Exploration. People have been coming to visit us. Yes, thank you very much. Especially, we have lots of folks from Mirabella that watch our program, and I've met couples, and a couple of people came over. And a really nice gentleman last week came by and sort of like started a dialogue. So I appreciate that. And so just to kind of let everybody know, our building, we're now out of classes. So we have a little bit of a reduced hours, but if you just kind of wander by and come to our building between 9 and 4 during the summer, there's typically somebody there that can show you around. There's a couple of floors of the building that you can wander through, and there's a very special project we have going in the lobby right now. You can check and watch the progress as we get that built and get it going. So that's something you can do. My colleague is Meg Hufford, and she joins us for all of these programs. She helps us put these together, kind of helps us find the content and helps us get organized. So thank you, Meg, for being here. You know Kim Baptista because she's the one that communicates with you. She sends the invites. She sends the things afterwards that say, how did we do? I hope you're taking advantage of those, that you can leave a little message for us if we're doing good, or if you have an idea of something we want to watch in the future. And then Alex Blanche is back. Yay, Alex and Armand Dama. We were just talking before the show, classes are over, but finals are still this week. So I guess that means we're sort of still lucky to have our students with us. And then they're looking forward to a summer where they can kind of relax and get on with some other projects. So that's really cool. And then Alicia Hyland, our education specialist, is here, and you'll hear from her later in the show as well. We do closed captioning kind of as a rule, and so you have control over it on your own screen. So if you want to turn it off, you just can. We record all these programs, and it's kind of good for us to have the closed captioning go on, because it's a little easier rather than transcribing after the event. We actually do want to dialogue with you, and as I say this every time, sometimes it takes a little while for people to start formulating questions, but we don't have a chat function in this particular format, but we do use the question and answer button. So on the bottom of your screen, there's a little place. If you just want to sort of to think of something, if you see something you're more interested in, if you want to know a little bit more about what we're talking about, if you want to sort of find out some more information or have something for us, go ahead and just poke up that question and answer button, press it, and get a little question formed. We're watching those things all the way through the show. So if they're really quickly answerable as we're going, that'll happen. If we want to bring your question to one of our breaks during the program, that will happen as well. So welcome to summer. I can't remember the last time we started this program, and it's so light outside. The sun is setting much later. It's getting warmer. Everybody's probably noticed that. We're all kind of starting our summer plans. I know that the students are, and I know I am. So we're just going to kind of give you a bit of a view of the night sky, things to expect now, things that we'll be watching during the summer, things, as I said, that are leaving, things that are arriving, things that you can find in the night sky. And we're going to pay in particular attention to a very special, one of my favorite constellations is the one called the Odi. So that will be a feature tonight. I'm going to switch screens and kind of introduce you to a little iPad here. You've probably seen me use this before, and just to get everybody oriented, everything that is blue on the screen, right within that big huge circle, is up in the sky tonight at 8 o'clock. So right after this program, if you want to, you can kind of sign off here and go outside and start looking for some of the things we'll be showing you tonight. So I love this idea that you can make it real and make it real time. You can connect yourself to the night sky right away. And that's really how we envisioned doing this show. And we started kind of about this time of year. So it sort of made sense. And so I'm just going to kind of show you around a little bit. Right now, the screen is oriented to the west is at the bottom of your screen. If I'm just going to move it up a little bit here, I can create for us a horizon. Remember, everything that's green is below the horizon. So you can see the sun kind of in the green pool, just a little bit to the light, right? That means it's already gone down. And that means it's starting to get dark right now. It's that time we call the civil twilight. When the sun goes down a little bit more, we'll call it nautical twilight. And that's when you can start to see a lot of stars come out. And then probably about 45 minutes after that, about 8 o'clock or maybe just a little bit, we call that astronomical twilight. And that's when it's dark enough to really see the sky at its very, very best. I'm just going to kind of just show you a couple things going on here in this particular part of the screen. Oh, you know what? I have to, got a little thing here, just a little technical. Hang on a second. I'm going to have to unplug for a second and replug back in. So we just do this. And I'll also tell you, I just came back from a trip. I was out camping and I had a really, really good dose of some really clear night skies. And I really, really sort of loved getting up there, getting up in the cool. I was up in the Cottonwood area. And I don't know if some of the audience probably knows, there's a place called Dead Horse Ranch State Park. And it is up just sort of like right outside of Cottonwood. In fact, the city of Cottonwood is right there. I see what I did wrong. Just before the show, I turned off my Bluetooth. Now it's on. And now I can kind of get back on it. Yes. So let me just kind of go back in here. And so I got a really good dose of some really cool things that were happening in the night sky and some things that we can sort of watch for and sort of as we go ahead here. So I'm going to, let me see, I'm switching to my iPad. I am so sorry about this little troubles right here. Hang on a second, I see what's wrong. Just before the program, we made a little change, and of course, you never do that, and I did it. So, okay, now I have a kind of a screen that I can write on here, and I'm going to just show you some stuff here. So you might remember that we spent a lot of time over the winter talking about Orion and Orion's belt, and there's the belt stars right there. You might remember just actually about a month ago, we introduced you to a little project where you're going to look for the V, the head of the bowl, towards the bowl in the sky, and kind of count the stars. And then you might remember over the last couple of weeks or months, or we've actually kind of been talking about this really, really bright triangle. So the brightest stars of the sky are up in this particular configuration. And so this one down here is called Sirius. It's the brightest star in the sky. The bright star in the little dog, Canis Minor, is called Procyon. And this is Betelgeuse, or the shoulder of the giant. And those make a really big triangle. You notice that in this particular scene, they're right above the western horizon. So that means within an hour or two, they're gone. And every single night they'll be a little bit lower in the sky. And so that's when I say this particular part of the sky, the one we've been looking at quite a little bit over the last several weeks, when I say it's sort of setting into the sun, it literally is. It's moving into the sunlight. And so it'll get closer and closer to the sun and set with the sun just a little bit later. It won't be long before that goes. Also wanted to point out tonight in your night sky, this is sort of one of the viewables, something I want you to go see, is a little crescent moon. And if you have been watching the last several nights, I'm going to talk to you at the end of the show about a little scene that I saw play out when I was up north. But if you've been watching the last couple of nights, the moon moves about, I don't know, about 12 degrees every single night. So last night it was there. The night before that, it was kind of like right here. On Sunday night, it was just a tiny, tiny little sliver of a crescent. And it was really just above the horizon at sunset. And that was the start of that new moon. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Anyway, this is the part of the sky that we are saying goodbye to. It's going away. And now I'm going to just kind of get back to a full view and introduce you to some things that are coming up that are really kind of wonderful. I'm going to shift our focus towards the north. I'm going to go back into my little sort of draw screen here. And you can see just above, if you look towards the north, here is the very, very famous Big Dipper. You can make that just a little bit bigger for you guys if you like. So you can see the N here is the northern part of the horizon. The Big Dipper, part of the Big Bear, is right there. It's a pan kind of with a handle, and it's upside down. So anything that was in it would be leaking out right now, pouring out of the sky. And then I think everybody knows that if you take the two stars that are at the end of the bowl there, these two right here, and you just kind of like just walk it down. Some people say that it's 5 steps. I'll sort of do that again. Let me just sort of erase this for a second. And if I count them out, you can sort of say, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 widths of that particular, those two stars along the handle. That's your North Star right there. And that's called Polaris. And it's always in the north. And this particular part of the sky, if you watch it overnight, of course, it goes around in a big circle. So if you just watch it in a couple hours, that Big Dipper, that bowl will sort of move around. In about 6 hours, that Dipper bowl will be right here. And then it sort of like keep moving around. It just, from our vantage point here in Phoenix, the Dipper bowl kind of just skims across the northern horizon. That will happen 12 hours from now. So that's 8 in the morning. You won't see it. And then it sort of comes back and it will arrive back up at this particular part tomorrow night. This is a great time of year to kind of get used to the Dipper. Also, get used to that motion. That's really the spin of the Earth. And it's kind of interesting. If you just watch, you can actually sort of observe the Earth spinning by observing the Big Dipper moving through that we call that circumpolar cycle. The rest of the Little Dipper is really hard to see from Phoenix. You can usually see these two stars right here at the end of its bowl. But the ones that are sort of in the middle, they're very, very difficult to see in our sky. So Little Dipper, Big Dipper, they're parts of the Little Bear, Ursa Minor, and Big Bear, Ursa Major. And so just kind of get used to that. One more thing happening in this particular part of the sky, and I'm actually just going to erase a bunch of this stuff because I got a messy screen here. Let me just sort of get rid of some of that. I'll redraw some things. There's a constellation that we don't usually look at. It's not maybe one of the most famous of all constellations, but it is kind of cool to find in the sky. And now's actually a really good time to do it. So I'm going to show it to you right now. So recall, we had the Big Dipper right here. Easy to see, 7 stars and really, really bright, really high in the sky. And then you remember, I just talked about, here's the North Star, and the Little Dipper is right here. And there's actually a little constellation that swings through them. It's called Draco the Dragon. And Draco was the dragon that was protecting the golden apples in Hera's garden. Remember that? That was part of sort of one of the adventures that Hercules had to go and sort of find those apples and collect some of them. He got there, he found the apple tree, and then he found that it was actually sort of protected by this big dragon. And so Draco is a constellation, looks like that. you can actually see this, and I can see this for Phoenix, but you have to look really, really closely, and you have to be kind of in a dark sky, but you can see this. And so the easy way to find it is to find that little trail of stars that go between the Big Dipper bowl and the North Star. Those are easy. Those are easy targets for even an urban area like ours. If you've got a really, really good sort of decent clear night sky, you might wait until a little later, about 10:30 or 11 at night. You can sort of trace out that big, huge arc. It goes all the way through, makes this big, huge sort of S curve, and ends in a little tiny trapezoid, not really quite a square, but a little sort of shape at the end that becomes the dragon's head and Draco the Dragon. We're going to talk a little bit more about Draco the Dragon later in the summer and how he relates to Hercules, and because Hercules will be more prominent in the sky, that'll be the subject of a show that we have maybe in about 3 weeks. We'll sort of look for that. The other thing I wanted to show you in this part of the sky is the other side. So we're used to using the bowl to kind of point to the North Star, right? But there's another way to use the handle. And if you just sort of follow this arc and say this after me, everybody say, I want you to say it in your living room, say arc to Arcturus, right there. Essentially, that handle, if you just take that little, sort of that graceful little arc and trace it through the sky, you'll come to Arcturus. Arcturus is a very, very bright star in our sky. It's third or fourth, depending on kind of which book or manual you read, but it's bright enough. It's also got a little bit of an orangey kind of a tint to it. So it's not crystal white, it's not bluish, it's not really very, very red, but you're gonna go look at it tonight about 5 o'clock. I'm at 8 o'clock right after the show. Take a look, find that handle of the Dipper, trace it across, find that arc, and you're gonna find Arcturus over there. Now, Arcturus is going to, and I'm gonna talk a lot more about Arcturus after a break, because it is sort of signals part of really one of my favorite constellations in the sky. So it kind of fills in a little bit of this space between the Dipper and sort of by the Dragon and all that stuff. And we're going to get back to that a little bit later. But before we do that, I want to sort of keep our little line going. I said arc to Arcturus. That's easy. You guys are going to be able to find that. But then I'm going to kind of keep going. So I'm going to draw another line from Arcturus to this really, really bright blue star right here. And we're going to use the term, we're going to say Spica to Spica. And so this is Arcturus over here. I don't remember if this tour, yeah, I guess it is. It's spelled with an A-U. And this one is called Spica. Spica means ear of wheat. And Spica is part of, it's the bright star, the alpha star of the constellation Virgo. So what we have done is we've been started with the Big Dipper. We found our way across the sky, found Arcturus, a very, very bright, orangey kind of star, easy to find. It's going to be over towards the east. You see the east in the corner over here. So now you're kind of looking in that particular direction. And then just keep going. The fact that these things are sort of towards the eastern part of the sky means they're going to be up for a while, right? The things in the west are the ones that are setting into the sun. Now I'm introducing you to a whole new part of the sky and a whole new place to look. We're going to introduce you to some new constellations that you can go look for. So, okay, you've got your dippers, Big Dipper, Little Dipper. If you want to take the time and the trouble to take a little detour, see if you can find Draco the Dragon right there. Arc to Arcturus, Spike to Spica. Okay, I'm going to change views a little bit here. So I'm going to go back up to a full view. You just saw all that happen. And now I'm going to spin completely around. I'm going to go and sort of like look at the southern part of our sky right now. So I'm facing towards the south. You see it there on the bottom of the screen. Let me get you a view that I can drive on. So here is south this time. Here's what we did, right? We were here. Do I have the right time of day? Yeah, I do. So we had the Big Dipper up here. That's now sort of in the northern part of the sky. We arced to Arcturus. We spiked to Spica. And now we actually sort of are along a line we call the line of the ecliptic. And if I just kind of like draw a little, sketch a little line all the way through this thing, I'm going to go through the moon for a moment and then over this way. Along this line is where we find all of the constellations of the zodiac. So we spiked to Spica, And that is actually part of a constellation called Virgo, right? And it makes up these stars over kind of in this particular area right here. I will later, I'll try to sketch Virgo, but for now I'm not going to. So I'm going to put a little V up here to show that. There's Virgo. Just before Virgo, if you know your zodiac, you know that we actually sort of have a constellation called Leo. Leo the lion is sort of like right here. You can sort of see it go this way, and then here's his big head and mane. He's got the mouth. I'll get his mouth open with big teeth, sort of like he's sort of laying on the savannah, sort of like just watching for deer or antelope or something like that. So I'm gonna put a big L here for Leo. I'm going backwards up the zodiac, right? So you sort of have that. Over here, we've already talked about these stars a lot. They're sort of like we're moving over towards the west, but these are the twins. So here's Gemini, and I'll put a big G over here. In between those is a very obscure constellation. So maybe a little later, we might use this as a summertime challenge. Remember about 3 weeks ago, we were talking to people about the Hyades, the little V, and we had everybody go out and look for the obscure little stars that might be buried in there and count them. I'm going to give you another challenge later, not tonight, but maybe we'll do this a little bit later. Right here between these really dim stars is the constellation Cancer. I'm going to mark it with a big C right here, but it's sort of right between those two. So what do I got here now? So I've got Virgo, I've got Leo, Cancer, Gemini, and just setting over here. These are like the horns of the bull are right here. And so the bull is actually sort of like off, here's the little sort of like head of the bull, and this is Taurus. At any given time, right, when you look at the night sky, I don't know if you've ever thought of this before, I think I might have mentioned it on the show before, but there are about 6 constellations of the zodiac, that parade of stars that go through the sky above the horizon. And so the 6th one back over here is the constellation Libra. So some of you might know your zodiac signs. We don't, at the School of Earth and Space Exploration, we definitely don't promote astrology as a science like astronomy or astrophysics is. But as a cultural astronomer, as somebody sort of likes to learn how people have embedded sky stories, sky knowledge, sky lore, those things in our cultures and in our memories and in our collective history. The zodiac actually does play a role, and it is essentially along that line that the sun travels. And so you can sort of imagine the sun is off the screen towards the right over there in the western sky, and Taurus, the bull, is sort of arriving at the sunset and sort of going in. The moon, when it moves across the sky, it will sort of follow that line as well. Tomorrow night we'll find it kind of up here between the twins up in Gemini. So it's a really good marker. Everybody should start to know the zodiacal signs. Everybody should start to remember kind of how to do that and follow along. I really love the constellation Leo, so much so, and I've got just a little bit extra time in this section. I'm going to erase everything. I'm going to go help you find some Leo stuff. And when I was up in the night sky in Cottonwood last couple of days, I was out there sort of like in the middle of the night, well, maybe 10, 11 at night, absolutely crystal clear. There was no clouds at all in the sky. It was really, really easy to get a good view of the sky. Let me erase that one right there. And so I'm going to kind of just redraw this a little bit, but I want to show you something else going on here. Leo, as I sort of already said, sort of looks sort of like this. And you can sort of imagine a lion sort of like sitting in profile. I think everybody can kind of see how that works. Here's this back. 2 stars that are notable in Leo are this one right here is the brightest one, and that's called Regulus. Regulus means heart of the lion. And you remember that line of the ecliptic I was showing you? It actually sort of passes right through it. So you'll often see Regulus will be occulted by other things because the planets, the sun, the moon, they sort of like travel at least near that line, a little bit above it, a little bit above it. So once in a while you read about an occultation. That means something gets between us and that particular star. So Regulus, because of its line, its position there. This one in the back over here is called the Nebula. And I say that because these are really easy to find. And sometimes I think people like to, like me, I like to know the names of the stars and where they come from and stuff like that. The nebula means tail of the lion. That's pretty easy. So you have heart of lion and Regulus. You know the term. Sometimes you think back to the roots of terms and etymology of things. Regal is in Regulus, right? The heart of the lion, lion-hearted, royalty, the king of the beast, and the heart of the king of the beast. All of that stuff sort of sort of falls into that Regulus. The Nebula means tail of the lion. Now, there's an obscure little constellation. In fact, it's not showing up here on the screen, so I might sort of like to do something. But if you, it isn't part of this constellation anymore, but if you extend the tail up in this particular direction, there are 3 stars over here, very, very difficult to see. This is actually sort of, the constellation is called Coma Bernesis. And it is named after King Sobeski's wife's hair. So it was not an ancient constellation, but a Middle Ages constellation. There was a king named King Sobeski. He had a wife, and her name was Bernice. And so the hair of Bernice became part of this thing. And some people sort of like call it sort of the little tuft at the end of the tail, because out here in this little area is just a cluster of hundreds and hundreds of little stars. It also happens to be a region in the sky. If you use a really, really powerful telescope, you can see lots of galaxies. It's really that kind of thing. So I guess what I'm going to say is, in your investigations of your night sky, in your backyard, do these things. Follow the arc to Arcturus, follow the spike to Spica. Look for Leo, because it'll be just right up dead middle of your night sky. Easy to see, highest above the horizons. And it's really, really fairly easy to make out Leo the lion. But look back towards his tail and see if you can see. You might have to be away from the city lights. Some of our friends, I'm sure, in Fountain Hills and North Phoenix can probably see this. And look for that little tiny cluster of tiny, tiny little dots. Kind of hard to see. And think about either that is, as some people saw it, a tuft of hair at the end of the lion's tail, or you might sort of think of it as the hair of Bernice, Coma Bernesis. All right. That's as much time as I wanted to take on the front end of this thing. I just sort of giving you a big overview of the whole of the night sky, how to find yourself around. You've got some things to look for. This recording will be online probably in about 3 or 4 days. So if you forget some of the stuff, want to go back and review it or look at it later. But that's kind of easy to do. Find the dippers, find the North Star, follow the arc to Arcturus, follow the line to Virgo, start to make out some of the constellations of the zodiac that follow that particular portion of the sky. And you'll find some of these wonders. Some of these things are just up there waiting for you to look hard enough and look in enough detail that you can discover them too. All right. I'm going to be back in a little bit, and we're going to be in the night sky again. I'm going to focus on my favorite constellation, Bootes. We skipped over it a little bit, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit before we get on with the rest of the show. But in the meantime, we got a break. We got a time to answer some questions if you like, and I think we have a little poll question for you. So let's go to the break, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rick, for that wonderful introduction of the night sky. If you have any questions for Rick, please go ahead and drop them in our question and answer, or in our question and answer below, and we will take them as we see fit or as available. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll while you type your questions. Have you been watching the pre-dawn parade of the planets? So we asked you a few weeks ago to watch what was going to happen, the conjunction of our planets, and we just wanted to know if you were able to participate. So it's looking like about half of us, a little less than half of us were able to go out, which is very exciting.
Alicia, I'm actually not seeing the results. Why is that? Is that just me, or is that?
Oh, it could be because I have not launched it yet. That might help. I haven't shared it yet. Excuse me. That might help now.
Okay, sharing now. Good. Okay. Hey,
perfect. Should be shared. So about 34% of us.
so I sort of feel like by virtue of my position, right, I can assign homework. I just feel like I can do this. And this is the only way I know if anybody's actually doing it or not. So, so good for you. A bunch of people sort of like, so I happen to notice, right? I have a little camper, and the little parade of planets is right outside of my camper bedroom window. I didn't set it up that way, but accidentally. So I woke up, or Luna woke me up at about 4:30 in the morning, and I look out, look, there it is. And so especially one of the things we talked about 2 weeks ago, we didn't sort of refine the poll question this tightly, but we talked about whether people were going to watch the conjunction. So essentially Venus has moved past Jupiter on April the 30th. What's that? That's 4 days ago, 5 days ago. And now it's actually sort of like past Jupiter and on the lower side. And when you started watching after our last show, it was on the upper side. So maybe some people actually did set their alarm and did go out on the morning of April 30th and see that. We call that a conjunction, when things get really, really close to each other. So maybe that happened. I'm just sorry that everybody has to get up really, really early in the morning. And then we're planning to talk about that again in a show in June, because Mercury has left the scene, but it's moving back around the sun, and it will sort of rejoin all of those fellow planets. And there is a kind of a moment in June, I think on the 15th, the second show in June, where all that line happens again. And so we'll go over that. We'll do the planet watch then, and we'll get everybody kind of excited about waking up really early in the morning again. So that's our mission, right? To get people up before dawn. Is that what we're here for?
Well, that and sneak peek, but we're going to have you stay up late here in a couple weeks. So, or I guess.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we get some sneak peek. Okay, let me go back. I just wanted to kind of just talk a little bit more, go into a little bit more depth about Boötes, the constellation, and then we'll kind of turn the program back over to some of the other parts of the sky. So here I am back in my scene here. I'm going to set this up so that it's in this particular direction. I'm just setting it up so it's easy for me to draw, frankly. I don't like to draw upside down. Sorry, let me get it just about right here. Okay, right there. And so here we go again. You guys already know this part. You've seen it before. Here's that Big Dipper. And here's its little bowl right here. And we followed that arc, and we came down to this star right here. And so this is the alpha star of Boötes. It's called Arcturus. It's also an interesting star because it's kind of close to us, and it's got a very funny, what we call proper motion. So scientifically, it's moving differently than everything else in the sky. And it's actually thought that billions of years ago, it wasn't even in our galaxy. It sort of like came in from the bottom. It's passing through. It becomes part of our night sky and part of our stories. But then it sort of like will disappear pretty soon. So from there's a lot of different ways to see Boötes. And so some people actually see it as an ice cream cone. Does that sound all right? Big one scooper right there. And so let me draw that again, because I obscured some of the stars, but I'm going to use this star this way, over this way, up this way, over this way, and back down again. So ice cream cone, that sort of fits. I'm also going to show you there's some obscure stars going up this way, and up here and up here. And so you'll see in some artwork I'm going to show you in a minute that Boötes also has sometimes a club, sometimes it's something else, and a little bit more about that in a minute. So, okay, ice cream cone, that's fair game. I think we can do that. Some people see it as a kite. I could sort of see that too. So, and I don't really care how you see it, as long as you see it. So we could sort of put a kite in the sky right here without question, and then have like a little tail dropping down and that kind of stuff. So that's possible. But really, it has a lot of other names and other ideas and other mythologies from the ancient past. It's not something that's very simple. In most cultures, it's sort of seen as the guy. He's like standing here. his shoulders are up in this particular direction. His head is up in this particular direction. Sometimes he's holding a club up in his hand over this way. Sometimes this hand is sort of outstretched a little bit. And he's cradling this little constellation over here called the Crown. So there's another way to see him. There's two little stars over here that we don't really talk about very much, but these two guys are known as the hunting dogs, Canis venesticis. So sometimes you'll see Boötes. He's actually got some little leashes kind of hanging off here and sort of coming down, and he's leading the two hunting dogs as they sort of like are barking and chasing things through the forest and all that stuff. So sometimes that happens. So Boötes can be a lot of things to a lot of different people. I like him especially because the story I like the best is that he invented the plow. And so that becomes pretty important. The constellation is known as the herdsman, so it's usually very agricultural, pastoral, or the like. And I think I have a couple of images I want to show you because I think this is sort of like help make it real. So this is a Boötes image right here, and this is a Boötes image right here. So somebody from my team can tell me if we can see those on the screen pretty good, right?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Sounds very good. Okay, I'm just going to make him a little bit bigger over here. And so you can see sort of same guy. Arcturus is down between his legs, the big, huge, bright star down here. The shoulders is so you remember a shoulder, his arm is up. And in this case, in both cases, he's holding a sickle. But then here's those little leashes going out to the dogs. The dogs have names. This one's called Char. The one on the lower is called Chara, and the other one is called Asteron. And so there he is. And in this case, he's holding a staff in his hand. And so in some language, in some derivations of this particular story, he's called the one with the staff. Boötes actually means herdsman. And then there is a story about the dog. So he is also known as Arcturus, who is the son of Callisto and Zeus, right? And so Callisto's father, Laocoon, actually sort of was playing a trick on them. He didn't like the relationship between Zeus and Callisto, and planned this elaborate trick about them. And Zeus found out about it, and so he turned the father into a wolf, and then he murdered his three kids, so he wouldn't have any sort of generation. And then he brought him back to life again. And he was so mad that he actually was chasing and trying to do harm to Callisto, the daughter. Zeus turned her into a bear, and that is sometimes seen as Ursa Major. And this particular constellation is seen as chasing the bear. Arcturus doesn't realize it's his mother and is chasing the bear around the North Pole all the time, chasing, and the dogs are part of that, hunting and part of that thing. So Zeus, Boötes is seen a couple of different ways. There's at least three pretty elaborate mythological stories about him. I like the plow herd and the plowman, and I like that mostly because he's up in the summertime. And he rises about the time it's time to plant your crops. He becomes prominent in the sky. You can watch him cross the sky every day of the night, every day for the entire summer until he gets to the other side. And when it's time for him to set in the western part of the sky, it becomes fall. It's time to bring in the crops and all that stuff. So he and Spica and Virgo, associated with Demeter, the goddess of the harvest, both of them sort of have this summertime appearance that sort of you follow through the night sky during the planting season. So I like when these cultural stories behind them actually fit the season. So there's like a purposeful reason to tell those stories and teach those stories because it relates to what's going on here on Earth. And so Boötes is that's for those reasons. Boötes is one of my favorite constellations, and I hope you guys get a chance to go out and visit it, see it, watch for it in the sky, and see if you can find it. It's also ridiculously easy to find. And if anybody had done that little thing and they saw the V of Hyades, if you found any of those stars, you could definitely see the stars that trace out the kite or the ice cream cone or the guy, Boötes himself standing there. So that's your night sky. That's where I kind of leave it. And so I'm going to turn the microphone and the image over to Armand Dalla. Armand, I asked him at the very, very last minute, I said, I told him, I said, I'm having trouble understanding the rockets and the launching systems and the stuff that is taking into the sky some of the stuff that ASU has been working on over the last several years. All of this is coming to a culmination kind of towards the end of the summer. And so I'm going to ask Armand to kind of explain some of that to us and see what that means. Thank you, Armand. Welcome. Nice haircut, by the way.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rick.
Are
All
you?
right, let me. Oh, sorry. Go
It
ahead.
looks like you're in Gotham. You're in Gotham City back there.
No, I'm actually on Coruscant, which is one of the
Okay.
planets in Star Wars. But
Okay.
yeah, let
Little
me
Star
share my
Wars
screen
example.
and
Thank you.
let's get started. But
We
yes,
have a Star Wars thing going on here.
Yeah, Star Wars
Yeah.
is back. It's sneaking into every part of the show.
yeah. So we talked about today's Star Wars Day, and as much as I wish our civilization was like that, what you see on the screen, other than the moon, is kind of the furthest extent of our own space or at least human space exploration. But each one of the dots you see orbiting the Earth are satellites, and everything we send to space has to be put on what we call a space launch system. So we're going to quickly talk about the past, present, and future of space launch systems and some cool missions that ASU is involved in that you should all follow. So one of the biggest and most powerful launch systems of all time was the Siren 5 rocket. I'm sure some of you guys heard of it before. And it was developed during the Apollo missions in order to send humans to the moon. It's 363 feet tall and weighs 6.2 million pounds. And that might be hard to conceptualize, but try imagining a 36-story building that weighs as much as 400 elephants. So again, this was a really big and really powerful rocket. And we haven't really needed such a powerful rocket for a long time because we haven't sent manned or crewed missions to the moon for a while. But another space launch system that you might have heard of is the Space Shuttle program. This was operational for a really long time, for around 30 years, and it consisted of 5 reusable shuttles that were mounted onto a larger rocket and side boosters. And these help launch major payloads, including the Hubble Space Telescope, all the parts of the ISS, and lots of other telescopes and a couple other space stations as well. But eventually it was canceled due to high costs, slow turnaround, and safety issues. Yeah, just imagine how complicated all the different parts of such a large system must be. But what about some of the current space launch systems, and how is ASU involved in them? One of them is the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. It is 229 feet tall and weighs about 1.2 million pounds. But one of the biggest and most important reasons why this is such a monumental rocket is that it's reusable. Once it launches, the first stage detaches and goes into orbit or wherever it's going. And the second stage comes back down and lands on Earth and is able to be reused. So far, it's already delivered cargo and crew to the ISS, but later this year, around August, I believe, it's going to be sending the Korean Pathfinder lunar orbiter to the moon. And on board that spacecraft is an instrument called Shadowcam, which was actually developed by the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter team here at ASU. And the Shadowcam is going to take more looks at what we call permanently shadowed regions on the moon, places where, or craters, I should say, which get no sunlight and are in constant darkness. And this camera will be able to see through the darkness and help us learn more about those regions. And we'll talk a bit more about that later as well. So another space launch system, which is aptly named, is the NASA SOS. And this one is supposedly going to be NASA's biggest or most powerful, I should say, rocket. And it's being developed and for future moon missions and probably beyond as well. Right now, the first one or the first mission is being used for is Artemis 1, which is going to be launching later this year. And one of the secondary payloads is a satellite called LunaMap, which is a mission led by ASU and Dr. Craig Hargrove. And this spacecraft is also going to look at the permanently shadowed regions of the moon and find out how much hydrogen is there in the form of water ice. And I want to point out something about space launch systems in general in this image. So if you see the very tiny US flag right at the top, everything below that is the launch system, the rocket, because it takes a tremendous amount of energy to get out of the Earth's orbit and go wherever you want to go, to low Earth orbit, to the moon, or even beyond. Right above the US flag is where all the secondary payloads of the mission are going to be, including LunaMap. And above that is the Orion capsule. And currently on the rocket that's going to be launching later this year, that capsule is empty and it's going to go and just orbit the moon empty. But in the future, NASA plans to have astronauts in that capsule and have people back at the moon in future Artemis missions. And what about if we want to go beyond the moon? Well, another space launch system is the Falcon 9 Heavy rocket, again developed by SpaceX. And what this is a very simplified description is the Falcon 9 rocket we talked about earlier, with 2 additional Falcon 9 first stage rocket boosters attached to it. And again, this one is much more powerful than the regular Falcon 9, and it's also reusable. I'm sure some of you may have seen the videos of the rocket boosters landing down. That was a pretty big day for space exploration because reusable rockets are much, much cheaper and better for the environment as well. But this rocket is going to be taking, it's not a typo in the slide, it's going to be sending Psyche to Psyche later this year. Psyche is the name of, or 16 Psyche, I should say, is the name of the metal-rich asteroid in the asteroid belt. And Psyche is also the name of the mission that's going to be going there. And it's, again, an ASU-led mission that's going to be going to this metal-rich asteroid and make several scientific observations. And we believe that this asteroid could be the core of a failed planet. So that is another exciting mission that you should all keep following. And I believe its launch date is set to be August 1st. Yes, yep. August the 1st later this year. And just keep an eye out for that. I'm sure we're going to keep repeating it in future Virtual Night Skies. But this is a pretty big mission as well. But what we've talked about so far obviously aren't the only rockets out there. There are several others, some by the European Space Agency, some by the Russians, some more by other private US companies like Blue Origin. And what does the future hold? Well, your guess is as good as mine. We're constantly seeing lots of new developments, and like on the far right of the image is Starship, which is another SpaceX launch system, and I believe that one is designed to get humans to Mars, and that rocket is going to be even more powerful than any of the previous ones we've talked about. But yeah, that's it for space launch systems. We talked about the past, the present, and what could be in the future. And I hope all of you are as excited for all the current NASA missions that ASU is involved in and all the future ones as well.
Thank you, Arma. Thank you very much. Kim, can you just come to the screen? I just want to interview you for a second because Here's let me explain why this is so important to us right now. So I work in an office with Kim and Meg, and we kind of work on this show, work on a lot of different things. We have lots of visitors, but one of the things that we do is we also kind of plan, and when I say we, this mostly falls to Kim, we kind of plan the sort of activities that are going to be celebrating either press conferences or things like that that are going to be celebrating launches. And just by this funny quirk of happenstance, these missions, they don't always follow a normal path. Sometimes they get delayed, sometimes they get pushed, and then sometimes these particular launch dates are picked. And so we've been kind of aware of Psyche launching on August 1st now for a little while, for about 2 or 3 months. That's our target. We think that's it. But the other missions have been a little bit wishy-washy, and just within about the last 3 weeks, we're starting to find out that they're all kind of happening now, maybe even in the same week. Is that right, Kim? I mean, are we sort of like, what do we don't know the answer to some of them, but everything's kind of looking towards this big cluster of launches all at the same time.
Yeah, so Shadowcam is going to be an evening launch on July 31st. If I'm reading my calendar right. Yeah, July 31st. And I don't have a time yet, but that will be, like 1 or 2 launch pads down from Psyche. And then Psyche is scheduled on August 1st. And then Artemis 1 is, that window is also, it will not launch any earlier than August 1st. So meaning that's NASA speak for saying that August 1st or anytime after that. So yeah, we could have a very busy week in Florida with all of those launches happening. So
ASU doesn't usually do 3 launches in a year, and certainly we've never done 3. Been part. I'm saying, well, we're not launching these things, but we have instruments, we have precious cargo, we have projects that we've developed. Especially the Psyche one is a big, huge deal for us because it's such a big spacecraft and all-encompassing. So I just think it's just
don't forget
amazing.
that we're waiting for first images from the James Webb Space
Telescope. Oh, that's right, James Webb Space Telescope.
Early July. And then in the meantime, the Themis camera is getting ready to get packed up and make its way to JPL for the Europa mission, which will be in 2024. So by the time we get ready catch our breath from all that, we'll be getting ready to work with Phil and his team for that launch. Good. So yeah, we have lots going on, and I'm sure.
And we're going to keep people. And we're going to keep people updated on this particular show every 2 weeks. We're just going to, but just kind of, I just want to give everybody this overview because I was confused myself, which rocket is taking which project and how's that going to happen. And so we're going to try to refine this, and we'll just have some specials as we go along just to make sure that we keep everybody updated on what's happening when they start delivering science, and especially that James Webb. We'll be showing you
so James Webb will
show first images.
Yeah, James was going to kick it off, and then it'll be a very busy summer, and then we'll be back to fall, and the students will be back, and we'll be busy with all of our other programming we normally do. So yeah.
Thanks for coming on. So I just wanted to just give everybody this little sense of why this is becoming exciting for us. Alex, would you tell us a little bit about maybe a meteor shower that we're supposed to be watching? When is it? We're watching it tonight or tomorrow night? When was that?
I mean we can watch it right now. I mean it's
really? Okay.
It's been happening I think it's said to happen for about over a month, but they're of course peak times. But yeah, let's talk about asteroids and meteors and all we can see. So Eta Aquariids are currently in full swing. I'm going to share a little bit that we can for demonstration later. I'll make sure that all this stuff is off my screen. Eta Aquariids, it's a meteor shower that's happening right about now. It actually kind of started in, I want to say it was the beginning, kind of mid-April. That was kind of the beginning of the shower. It's running until about May 28th. So you have a little bit less than 4 weeks to see the shower. Here in the Northern Hemisphere, the best chance to see it, I'm just going to get it out of the way, early morning in the eastern part of the sky. That's really when these are at peak. They're going to be near the horizon. This is where the Constellation of Aquarius is, and this is when it's really going to be a good time. So just for the sake of kind of visualization, we're going to skip forward into the night. Very early morning. This is kind of about, right now it's about 3 in the morning. So you're going to have to get up pretty early. But as you can see, they're in the Constellation of Aquarius. You're not going to see any in this simulation right now because, unfortunately, here in the northern hemisphere, we don't get to see the really high peaks that they might see in the southern hemisphere. They get like 30 meters an hour usually. We get on average about 10. That's not to say you won't see any. If you go out early in the morning and you just face east and look up into the sky, you're going to see some, and you're going to see some good ones. Remember to let your eyes adjust for about 30 minutes, but you're definitely going to be able to see some of these meteors. And this is one of the shows. Interestingly enough, the Eta Aquariids, some of you might know this, they're actually a part of Halley's Comet. So Halley's Comet, the one that comes around about every 70 years or so, last time it came here, as it starts going closer and closer to the sun, it heats up, it starts fragmenting pieces of ice and rock, and that just kind of sits near Earth's orbit. And when we fly past it, it heats up in our atmosphere and becomes the Eta Aquariids. It also becomes the Orionids in October. So both of these meteor showers are actually parts of this comet. That's kind of interesting. But make sure to look out for this. I know it's a very early thing, but if you're up that time of day anyway, like sometimes I am, maybe just decide you're going to have to go out somewhere kind of out of the city lights, and you're going to have to go out early. So maybe bring like a sleeping bag or a very comfy chair, and maybe like a hot cup of coffee or tea just to keep you warm. And well, here in Arizona, you might not need it, but go out early in the morning and see if you can see these. This is when you're going to see them, early in the morning, or travel to the southern hemisphere and wait until later in the evening. Either way works. But those are the Eta Aquariids. This is kind of the meteor shower of the month. And yeah, be sure to check those if you are up and you have the desire to. I can understand not, though.
Thank you. And I would also add that meteor showers are really impacted by the moon, and this is favorable. So remember, we just had a new moon about 3 or 4 days ago. So in the next couple of nights, and if I understand it right, the Eta Aquariids are sort of peaking. The best time, I think, is today and tomorrow, right? They do start 2 or 3 weeks ago. They go for another 2 weeks, but the peak is about now. And with the favorable moon, this really is the time to go out. So let your eyes get used to the darkness and see what's going on. Thank you, Alex. Thanks for the update.
Yep.
Great. And
always a pleasure.
We're going to actually now ask Alicia to get us prepared for another amazing phenomenon happening in a couple of weeks. What's up?
Hello.
I love your current events. Okay, good.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. But in this week's current events, we do have some more homework for you. We have some things that we want you to do. So first and foremost, we want you to save the date. We'd love for you to join us at the School of Earth and Space Exploration virtually for a 2022 total lunar eclipse. So we called the moon, we got it all positioned, ready to go. It was a whole thing. But no, we're excited to celebrate the total lunar eclipse, and we're inviting you to join with us virtually. Not only that, but we're partnering with a couple really important people, or organizations, I should say. Lowell Observatory might be best known for discovering Pluto, and as well as the Sociedad Chilena, well, I can't speak, Chilena de Astronomía. So a Chile Society of Astronomy group will be joining with us, or will be linked as well. So that's going to be Sunday, May 15th from 7 p.m. to 9:15 p.m. Or at least Arizona time. So Kim, our wonderful webinar czar, will send out the links and information on that. But just to kind of give you a really quick rundown, at 6:32, we're going to start to see the moon moving into position, but moonrise is going to be at about 7:12 p.m. So just after that 7 o'clock hour, at just 7:27 or so, we're going to start to see a partial, we're going to see the line of the terminator here. And then really at 8:30 or 8:29 is when the show starts to begin. And so it'll wrap up around 9:15, or at least our webinar will end around 9:15. So we can all be in bed early to then wake up early and watch the Aquariids later if we wanted to. But no, our webinar will be from 7 to 9 p.m. So just kind of in this really important zone of action, or this time period of action. So make sure that you are checking our webinar.
That's great. And there's 1 to 2 lunar eclipses this year. There's another one we'll be looking at in November. This is one that is positioned in the evening. This is like armchair lunar eclipse. This is the one where you don't have to work very hard. You don't have to stay up very late, and we're going to do all the work for you. And then I don't want it to sort of slip by, but we actually sort of have organized, so we'll have a southern hemisphere view and a northern hemisphere view of the moon at the same time. Let's see what those folks down in Chile actually see when they're looking at a lunar eclipse. That'll be kind of fun to do. So looking forward to it. And the reason we're announcing this now, of course, this comes up between now and our next Wednesday show. So we'll see you again on Wednesday, May 18th. In the meantime, this special project on Sunday, May 15th to cover the lunar eclipse. Thanks, Alicia. I just have, with the last minute left, I just have a final comment. And I preach often getting out and looking at the night sky and watching things and doing that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, I'm a busy guy and I work all the time, and I'm sort of like, just like everybody else. Sometimes it's not easy to go out in the night sky, but I did have a nice little time up and I mentioned it before, camping up in Cottonwood. On Sunday night, I was there. It was the first night there, and somewhere around dinner time, it's starting to get dark. Twilight's happening, and I remember that this really is the first day of a new moon, and a very special one. And so I went out. I sort of found it. It was just a tiny, tiny little sliver, just a little silver, almost like a little just piece of hair, like a fingernail, just a little. And it was riding over Mingus Mountain, the mountains that are sort of out to the west of Cottonwood. So I watched it actually all the way down to its set when it moved into the mountain and beyond. And so this is something I encourage people to do, is to sort of find things, find phenomena, just go take the time, take the breath to observe it, see it happen. And indeed, as you can watch an object like that just drop the last couple of degrees right out of the sky, that it sort of looks like it hovers on the mountain for just a moment. And it gives you a chance to think about the significance, and then it'll just drop behind and disappear. I thought that was really, really amazing. And this one in particular is very special because this particular new moon, that day, that particular night, is the close of Ramadan, the Muslim month of fasting and celebration. And the close of that time, that particular night, Sunday night, May 1st, with that little sliver moon that I was able to witness, began the big celebration and the feast. It's called Eid el-Fitr. And Eid el-Fitr is an all-day celebration. It goes from that evening to the next evening. It's triggered by that same little piece of moonlight that I saw descending behind the mountain. And the Muslims make up, Muslim religion makes up almost 25% of the world's population. This is a really, really big deal. And so to see that happen, to see it against the background of Arizona's beautiful mountains, to watch the motion, kind of feel the earth turn as you're watching it sink into the mountains, it was really a special experience. And so I thought I would bring it to you and celebrate and share it with you tonight when we sort of meet on our Wednesdays. So thank you for coming. Follow us, watch us, join us for the special on Sunday the 15th for the lunar eclipse. Join us again on May the 18th. We're going to have a special program then. And we'll sort of keep going all the way through the summer. So we hope you guys attend every week. And we hope you like what we're doing. Don't forget to respond. If Kim sends you a message, it's sort of how we doing, make sure you let us know how we're doing. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you, everybody.